happy to be here tonight and to have an opportunity to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Jesus Velasco. Dr. Velasco is the Joe and Teresa Long Endowed Chair in Social Sciences at Tarleton University. He worked for many years at the Center for Teaching and Research in Economics in Mexico City. He was chairman of international studies at the center from 1998 to 2001. He is a former visiting scholar at the Woodrow Wilson, Weatherhead, and Rockefeller Centers at Harvard University. He is also the prestigious author of Neoconservatives in U.S. Foreign Policy under Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush, Voices Behind the Throne. Also co-author of Bridging the Border, Transforming Mexico-U.S. Relations. He is an extremely accomplished individual, and we are grateful for his time today. Please welcome Dr. Jesus Velasco.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. As you will realize in the next 3 seconds, I'm not from here. This tropical accent comes from Mexico. But what my colleague and friend Michael Landis told me about you, and I'm finishing a book that is about how other countries see the United States, how other countries perceive the United States, and that's what he asked me to present before you. And this is a great moment because, as you know, we have very recently won a presidential election in the United States and congressional election, but the most important focus for the foreign people were the presidential election. So what I'm going to tell you is basically the outcome of 14 papers that people from different countries from Asia, from Europe, and from Latin America wrote about how their different countries, like could be Finland, Russia, England, France, South Korea, or China, perceive the American election. And why this is so important, at least in my view, for the United States. So perhaps the first question that I would like to address with you briefly, I'm going to talk about 20 minutes and then I can spend all night long if you want to ask me is why is it important for other countries to follow the American election? You know, if I ask you, do you follow, I don't know, the South Korean elections that happened just recently? You're going to say, no, who cares about that? Right? But in the case of the United States, it's different, and it's different for several reasons. The first one is because the United States is the main superpower. And the main superpower involves that people are interested in the United States. Why? Because and this was not always the case. In the 19th century, nobody cares about the United States. It was basically after the Second War that the United States started developing a very strong program of presence around that organized the international system according to the American interest, that made a Marshall Plan to rescue Europe from the devastation of the war, that started going to different parts like Asia and the Vietnam War and stuff like that. So the United States became the dominant power, and the countries are concerned about that power. The United States, it always presents itself like it is the best democracy in the world. It's totally false. The United States is not the best democracy in the world, but it presents as the best democracy, which is very important because other countries get suspicious and say, why do they say that it's the best democracy? We are better. For instance, if you go to Finland or to Denmark or to Sweden, they are 10 times better. Gender equality that we do not have here. We have never elected a woman to be the president of the United States. Never, ever. In Finland, they are like 20. But if you break your arm in Finland, the whole surgery and rehabilitation is going to be free for you, even if you are American or myself as a Mexican. If you break your arm here and you go to the emergency room, you and I know that you're going to be broke for the rest of your life. So the United States has captured the attention The United States has the largest defense budget and expenditure in the world, about $610,000 million per year. The closest one is China with $210,000 million per year. Sorry. So the difference is huge. The second reason is that the United States has a lot of weight in the international system. If you go to the United Nations, if you go to the Inter-American Bank, if you go to the World Bank or the IMF, the United States has a big presence. But not only that, the United States was the main architect of that. So the situation is we want to follow the United States. The United States always said that they were example of democracy. And if you go to President Bush, just recently we can go over the history, you might see that President Bush said, we have to go to Iraq to turn the Iraqis into a democratic country. Why? Because democracy is the best. But the United States is number 21 among the most important ranking democracies in the world. So why do you want to support the 21? You better support the 1 or 2 or 3, right? So, but this is the image that we project around the world. Also, the United States has created, and we share this all the time. We hear all the time about the American dream, right? So this is the American dream. This is the country in which immigrants come and reach the American dream of equality, fairness, rule of law, and stuff like that. That idea has been reproduced in other countries, right? And so the American dream is not only the American dream, it's the world dream. Why? Because what you and I want for our kids is exactly the same, and it's exactly the same that if you go to South Korea, which is security, good education, good health, and stuff like that. So, but the people follow the American dream. And finally, perhaps, the United States captured the attention of the world for very different reasons. One of them is because in this particular election, and this is not my opinion, I'm just reproducing what other people say, the American election of 2016 was a circus.
And it still is a circus.
2016 was
The authors of China, of France, and of China, France, and South Korea said that it was the best reality show ever seen on television. The other element is that for some cultures, it's impossible to understand what is going on in the United States. It's out of their parameters. The best example that I can tell you is my example. When I came here to study my PhD, I was married at the time, and I went to Houston to see the stadium of the Houston Oilers at the time. It was a big thing for me. So there were like 10 kids, about 18, 25 years old. And I said, "What's up, buddy?" And I went like this to my wife, said, "I'm going to break their head. I'm going to break their head with these kids." You know why? Because this in Mexico means that somebody is having an affair with my wife. And so I was very upset. If you tell me hook of horns, I get very happy now. So what you have is that some of the language used by President Trump and candidate Trump doesn't fit the frame of those people. So in a highly hierarchical society like the South Korean society, that somebody says the words that President Trump said in that bus that was revealed by the television and the news like a month before the election, and the way that he addressed women is absolutely, it's like a guy from Venus is talking. And something, just to put in a nutshell, that they believe is that the American elections are a lot of fun and there are a lot of laugh. So what you see is funny. So if we go to this one, let me show you. We are not going to be able to show everything that I prepared for you. This is one of the most popular programs in France, and basically, well, this is the way that was portrayed. It's going to go quickly, right? This is in Mexico. The previous was in Germany. The way that the election was portrayed. This is Le Monde in France, the end of the American era. This is Corriere della Sera in Italy, saying wounded country on the trenches. This is the way that the press is projected. This is in Denmark, politicking. This is Mexico, an American fascist. And this is perhaps one of the most interesting ones. This is in England. Daily Mirror, what have they done? Can we stop it right there? What have they done? So, for many people around the world, this was basically unbelievable. And so, why it's this controversial? We have to focus in 3 different areas. One is personality. For the world, the personality of the candidates, not only of Trump, but it was a shocking personality. But just to give you this in a nutshell, for the French people, 82% of the French people describe Donald Trump as aggressive, 80% as racist, 55% as demagogue, 78% as dangerous, 10% as honest, and 12% as congenial. And this is what they see, right? So the personality of Trump is extremely controversial for the people around the world. That's one of the most important. And we can go to different parts. Let me just read you one sentence from the former Chilean president. This is a president that was president like 8 years ago. Ricardo Lagos that said, "We never thought that someone who says such a barbarities could have nomination from a political party in the United States."
Amen.
Amen.
I know that you're. So if you ask the Russians, which is a very different reading, why? Because it's very normal that it's a different reading. If you just recall what President Obama did with the Russians, like implementing sanctions and stuff like that, it was natural for the Russians to be sympathetic to the person that say that they will normalize relation with the Russians. So if you go and see this, you say that 60% of the Russians in November 2016 were in favor of Trump, 5% of Clinton, and hard to tell 36%. That was normal. But then, if you go to South Korea, you might say that the total was 82% in favor of Clinton, 3% in favor of Trump, and the other didn't go. What you're gonna have, it's almost a consensus issue in Europe against Trump and in favor of Clinton. Almost a consensus. Why I use the word almost? Because there were many countries, especially in Central Europe, that were in favor, that have an authoritarian government, like in Hungary. In Hungary, the president basically shut down the main university of the country just like a couple months ago. So you have different people that were like this. What is the other thing that they were concerned? What is what right now is very popular, that is fake news. So you cannot see, let me see if you can see it. You cannot see it here, but I'm going to show you this. This is the cover of the what did I do? This is the cover of the Economist, one of the weekly magazines in Britain, and they portray this. We know more or less that any candidate, that means Obama, Clinton, Bush, or Trump, well, not Trump, but any candidate lie about 30% of the time. So 70% they are truthful, but 30% they are lying. Well, this was measured by week, and Trump lies about 70% of the time. But this is even more complicated because people do not believe what is the truth. Why? Because what you have is what specialists in psychology call partisan motivation reasoning. And this is for me, it's passion. If you, for instance, in 2015, we know that the economy in the United States grew. It's a fact. Like my friend right here has a green shirt. Unless you are daltonic, that's green. Right? If I tell the Democrats, if this is green, they're going to say yes. If I tell the Republicans, if this is green, they're going to say no. And this is exactly the case when you are watching a football game or a baseball game. Have you ever watched the Rangers against whatever, but with the guys that are from the other team and you are from the Rangers? And there is a close call, and even when you have the reply, if you go for the Rangers, you can say, no, even if that is not correct, right? Have you ever been in those situations? All the time, right? Yeah. Even if you are for the Rangers. Well, that's exactly what happened. So it doesn't matter what you say. You believe according to your own standards, and the only standards are this. Trump is not trustable, Clinton is trustable, or vice versa. Then, the coverage of the news is highly biased, and we are guilty as well as the television networks. Why? Because we have a television that is for entertainment. It's not for providing information to the citizens to make good decisions in a democratic country. Most of the television networks are financed by private money. So what is the business? If you have a business, you want to make money, right? No, you don't have a business. Professors are the crazy ones. We never got money, we never have business. So this is the idea. So the news are becoming entertainment. And Trump is fantastic for that. It's fantastic. Because I can say, look, this guy is absolutely insane. and so it's so outrageous that captures the news immediately. So during the primaries, Trump did not pay a single coin in the primaries to have the news behind him.
That's right.
Why? Because he was just saying whatever he wants to say, right? It's like saying, this group of people say that they're Democrats, but they're a bunch of Republicans. Jesus Christ, everybody can come over, right? So this is basically what happened. And then the news go in two different directions. One is what people call horse race. And horse race news are like horse race. The guy that is saying that number one is going, right? He's only reporting that the horse is going in first place, but he's not telling him anything. Is the horse tired? Is the jockey very heavy so the horse cannot? He's not telling anything. Just that whatever horse 5 is in the first place. And there are what we call substance news. Well, just let me give you a couple examples. First of all, negative news were 83% of the time. So just say something negative about it. Horse races news were 81% of the time. So what the people absorb were just data. He's going in first place, but there's no substance. And substance, 19%. That's what we got. Okay. So this is the problem. The other problem that the foreigners see is that the American elections are extremely expensive. This election costs $7 billion in general, not only the presidential, but all the elections together. It's exactly the same amount of money that costs the election of President Obama. When you have a country in which, in the pie, you have 84% of the population that controls, 20% of the wealth is 20% of Americans control 84.6% of the wealth of this pie. For countries in which equality is extremely high, like Denmark, this is basically out of conception. So many countries do not understand how in the world a person that doesn't get all the votes to be elected could be elected. So how can you win in the electoral college and lose in the popular vote? Which has happened today 5 times in our history and 2 times in the last 20 years. Before we didn't have, the last time that we had before President Bush was in 1888 with Harrison as President of the United States. So all of this creates a kind of a weird situation for the people. Let me go quickly for just to tell you why it's so important that what other thinks of us. Well, first of all, because I think that the U.S. image overseas conforms part of the foreign policy environment in which American administrations has to work. And this is very common. If you meet one person, you know if you have chemistry with that person, right? So, and you said, well, he's very funny. Maybe he's a horrible human being, but you have this kind of connection with the person. Well, that's the kind of connection that you establish also as a nation. So what they think or they perceive is very important. Second, the world is absolutely interdependent. So if you really want to solve the main important problem that we have that the American news is basically ignoring, that is the possibility of a nuclear war with North Korea, you better be careful of what the Chinese are doing. Because you are not going to solve that problem without the Chinese. So if you say, oh, okay, like President Trump said, these deals with the Chinese are horrible and we're going to get rid of this, you better don't do that. Because they are useful. The war with my country, with Mexico. That's a good one. Why? Because to build the wall costs between 20 or 40 billion dollars. We know that Mexican immigration to the United States is 0 since 2007, which means that the same number of people that come to Mexico, from Mexico to the United States, are the same number of Mexicans that are leaving the United States. And we know that in the next 30 years, what we're going to have is not immigration from Mexico, but immigration from Asia. And you don't need a wall to stop the Asians. They come from the sea. So what happened? Let's imagine, which is not going to happen, but let's imagine that there's a trade war between Mexico and the United States. And no product comes from Mexico, no product goes from the United States to Mexico. Well, we in Texas, we're going to be losing 1,200,000 jobs immediately. Because 1,200,000 jobs just in Texas depend on NAFTA. So, and believe me, the Mexicans are going to win the next bulk in the Olympic Games. They're going to learn how to jump. There's no way that you can stop that for one particular reason. The reason is very simple. The difference in salary between a Mexican and an American is 6 to 1 or 7 to 1, depending on what area. So what a Mexican makes in one entire day of work is what you make in 1 hour of work. And if you want, and this is the case, but if you are escaping from violence, from gangs, from drug traffickers and stuff like that, nobody's going to stop you. Okay, so is this going to have is going to affect the United States? Yes. Is this going to be serious? We do not know, but quite probably. Why? For instance, the Europeans are saying that the United States is not trustable anymore. There are some possibilities that the parliament in England will reject any visit of Trump to England. If you really want to fight terrorism, you need intelligence and cooperation with other countries. If they don't do it, we're in a big problem. Just one example, and I finish in a second. When September 11 happened, the people, the Minister of Foreign Affairs were in Peru. Colin Powell was in Peru with many Minister of Foreign Affairs of Latin America in a meeting. The Mexican Deputy Secretary of Foreign Affairs, without any consideration from the President or the Deputy, closed the border immediately. Nothing moved from the border. The Americans were awfully happy with that decision. Right? Why? Because they didn't know, and we didn't know at the time, if there were terrorists crossing from Mexico to the United States. So to cross the border was the right decision. So what you need is cooperation. So what you have right now, it's a very interesting phenomenon. And with this I finish. In 2008, and especially after the terrorist attacks and the invasion of the United States in 2003 of Iraq, the United States was highly criticized by many countries of the world because of the foreign policy implemented by the United States. President Obama recuperates part of that prestige of the United States in international affairs, not fully, but part. But right now, the criticisms that come from abroad are not coming from the American foreign policy, but are coming from American domestic politics. What is the way that the Americans select, and what is the kind of people that they elect. Therefore, the prestige of the United States in the world is pretty weak, just to say the least. Thank you. I stop here and I go.